Good afternoon or good morning for those joining us from the other side of the Atlantic today. Welcome to our first Berlin Meets USA webinar this year, organized in close cooperation with our great partners, Georgia Department of Economic Development, Berlin Business Office in the US, and Berlin Partner for Economics and Technology. My name is Marzena, and I work for SIBB as a project manager, international business, and I'm really excited to be your host today. And for those who don't know us, SIBB is a digital business association operating in Berlin-Brandenburg region, and one of our main mission is not only to strengthen the region as a technology and innovation hub, but also to help our company members to develop new business opportunities regionally and internationally. I would like to play a short video, introduction video, in order to give you a better idea of our mission, what we do, and who we are. Just 1 second. Okay, thank you very much for watching. In case you guys have any additional questions related to our association or potential cooperation opportunities, please feel free to approach me during the networking session, where you will get a chance to use your microphone and camera. So don't be shy, stay with us till the end, and let's connect, let's get to know each other. As you saw it on the video, one of our international projects, Project Point Out, which is financed by the Berlin Senate Department for Economics, Energy and Public Enterprises, has a primary focus on the American market. What's the goal of this project? It creates a platform for cooperation between the IT centers located in the German capital region and the IT centers located on the east side of the United States. How do we achieve our goals? We basically organize regular B2B industry-focused networking events called Berlin Meets USA, as the one today. And besides that, we organized business delegations to the US. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we were forced to postpone our business delegation 3 times last year. And for now, we postpone it indefinitely. So please stay tuned. Check our website on any updates. We think it will happen either at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year. At this point, I would like to pass on the microphone to the sponsor of SIBB Forum International Business, Georgia Department of Economic Development. Ellen, are you here? Could you please join me here on the big stage and say a few welcome words from your side? Hello.
Hello, thank you, Marzena. The state of Georgia is excited to be part of today's transatlantic discussion on cybersecurity. I'm Ellen Kraft, Business Development Manager for the state of Georgia's Europe office. The state of Georgia has had continuous representation in Europe since 1973. Our office is based in Munich, and we are a team of 5 full-time employees who work to support Georgia businesses that are looking to export abroad and find trading partners, as well as to assist European companies that are interested in expanding to the US. Since we are a direct extension of state government, all of our services are free and confidential. Over the past few years, the state of Georgia has emerged as a hotspot for cybersecurity operations in the United States. The growing presence of academic, corporate, and governmental agencies focused on information security have really furthered the state's status in this crucial industry. More than 115 established information security firms and startups generating an estimated over $5 billion in annual revenue have a presence in the state, which ranks 3rd nationally for the industry sector. Georgia is also home to the U.S. Army Cyber Command Headquarters, which is the central post for all of the U.S. Army cybersecurity operations. This is housed at Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia, and the Cyber Center of Excellence, which is the Army's epicenter for training and development, is also located there. Additionally, in Augusta, we're proud to have the Georgia Cyber Center, which is the largest single investment in a state-owned cybersecurity facility in the nation to date. So we're so lucky today to have the executive director of the Cyber Center, Mr. Eric Toler, as a panelist to learn more about their operation. So thanks again to SIBB for this opportunity, and I look forward to today's discussion and hopefully to connecting with many of you later on in the networking.
Thank you so much, Erlen. It's great to have you guys on board today. Before I invite our first speaker to the stage, I would like to go through the agenda. We'll kick off with two keynotes related to the US ecosystem. Afterwards, we'll have two German cybersecurity companies presenting their innovative solutions and also their expansion strategy to the US. Afterwards, we'll have a great panel discussion with all the speakers about past, present, and future of cybersecurity trends. We'll hear about the perspectives from the German and from the American markets. And not forget about our networking session, which will take place after the panel discussion. As I mentioned before, you will get a chance to use your camera and microphone during the networking. You will get a chance to connect with our great speakers, with other event participants, and get an experience of good old offline events we were attending back then, before the pandemic. Without any further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker of tonight, Samuel Weisner, former director of the National Cybersecurity Mitre Corporation. Hello, Samuel. Good morning.
Good morning and good afternoon to you and to my friends in Berlin. Thank you very much for the honor and the pleasure of speaking with you today. I appreciate it very much. I don't have a lot of time. I've got a few things I want to cover. I will take questions after my comments, and I'm going to try and hang out in the conference rooms. So my name is Sam Visner. I am a technical fellow at the Mitre Corporation. Mitre is a not-for-profit corporation that was established to serve only in the public interest. And our principal business is the operation of 7 of the United States federally funded research and development centers. I just completed my term as the director of the National Cybersecurity Federally Funded Research and Development Center, which focuses on the application of commercial, innovative cybersecurity technology to the nation's business and critical infrastructure. I also teach as an adjunct professor of cybersecurity policy, operations, and technology at Georgetown University. I've been the general manager of a couple of cybersecurity businesses, the chief of signals intelligence programs at the U.S. National Security Agency. So I've been in this business for quite some time. I'm working right now on issues relating to the cybersecurity of 5G, the challenges of cybersecurity of smart cities, and cybersecurity at the intersection of 5G, 6G, and artificial intelligence. So as you can tell, I have an interesting set of issues in front of me. I want to talk about the larger context in which cybersecurity is being addressed in the United States, as well as some market and technology trends. The first thing I want to talk about is not technology, but it's policy. There is in the United States a very active policy conversation underway. And this policy conversation relates to how cybersecurity will be treated as a nation state tool. And this has to do with how other countries treat cybersecurity. We look at Russia essentially, and this is my personal view, not my organization's view, as a destabilizer. They seek to interfere in cyberspace because they want to interfere in the functioning of the international order. China is different. China wants to change the international system and is seeking advantages through the use of power in cyberspace. As I said, Russia seeks to interfere to lessen the cohesion of European countries, lessen the Western influence, lessen the influence of liberal democracies. China's position is more complicated. China sees cyberspace differently from the way we see it. We see it as a global commons. They see it as governable sovereign territory. We see cybersecurity as the protection of information. They see cybersecurity as the acceptable conduct of human beings in cyberspace. They don't regard cybersecurity and its relationship to information the way we do. Instead, they see cybersecurity as the governance of human beings in China, along what they call the digital Silk Road, possibly for they want other countries to adopt, or possibly other countries to let China govern their cyberspace for them in return for China's investment along One Belt, One Road, and the digital Silk Road. Many of you have heard a term called advanced persistent threat. The A for advanced persistent threat stands for technologically advanced. But it's the P part that's interesting. It's the P part that reflects how other countries use cybersecurity. It stands for persistent, but it means that their operational tradecraft is sophisticated, that they have formal requirements, a doctrine, concept of operations, resources, discipline, that they are persistent. And that's what we're seeing in the case of SolarWinds. SolarWinds is a true advanced persistent threat wielded, we believe, by a nation-state actor. As I think you know, the consensus in Washington is that Russia is the country behind SolarWinds. And it was not just opportunistic. It was a very careful study of the vulnerabilities in the supply chain of major enterprises. And this SolarWinds issue gives us a sense of where the technology for cybersecurity has to go. First, we need to examine the vulnerabilities in our supply chain. And we need to move beyond the concept of network perimeters. In a world of 5G and converged supply chains and global enterprises and smart cities that combine transportation, energy, and other infrastructure, are there network perimeters? Are there network boundaries? We also have to become more sensitive to zero-day threats, threats that have not been seen before, where we become patient zero. The use of firewalls and virus detection that depend on known signatures is not enough. We need to consider moving to endpoint detection and response, to looking at the security and detecting anomalous, unusual behavior at the level of every endpoint and every resource. And the time has come for us to consider new architectures, both for the cybersecurity tools that we use and new architectures for the information technology infrastructures we're trying to secure. The term that we're using now, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, is zero trust architecture. And this is, in essence, moving security to every resource, to every application, and governing access to it, perhaps using cloud-based rules to mediate that access, but going beyond trying to detect malware with signatures at the perimeter. We also need to be taking a look at the use of machine learning to understand the behavior of complex converged networks. Think of a 5G network serving a whole smart city with millions and eventually billions of IoT devices, with that data being consumed by artificial intelligence applications which are guiding the governance of that infrastructure. We're going to need machine learning and eventually artificial intelligence to identify threats, to identify anomalous behavior, and to allocate dynamically security defenses, and possibly even guide active defense, in which case governments will get on adversary networks and disrupt them. The market itself in the United States is doing quite well. If you're thinking of doing merger and acquisition, you should be aware that prices are high. We have seen cases in which companies are acquired at 10 times revenue, not 10 times margin or profit, but 10 times revenue. The classic case here was the acquisition of a company called Mandiant by a company called FireEye, which acquired that company for about 10 times revenue in cash and in stock. Solutionary, which is a managed security services company, was acquired by the Japanese firm NTT, again with those kinds of margins. I want to caution you that empirical data about the size of the cybersecurity market or the size of the threat is notoriously unreliable, and that there is always a range of views. If you consult data from market analysis firms like Mordor, Analysts Mason, Gartner, Forrester, IDC, and others, there is always a range of views. Nonetheless, over the next few years, we do believe that we will see a CAGR, that we will see a compounded annual growth rate of over 12% in the U.S. market. We believe that the adoption of cybersecurity solutions is going to grow as we continue to roll out more and more internet penetration, particularly in North America. Again, I would say that you're going to see lots and lots of merger and acquisition. And there are companies that are trying to build their cybersecurity solutions to deal with threats as characterized by Mitre's attack, ATT ampersand CK matrix. That's a way that some companies and some government agencies are characterizing attacks and trying to cybersecurity attacks and trying to build solutions around them. We know that cybersecurity is going to be an issue. We know that more than about 2/3 and perhaps more of companies and enterprises that have more than 250 employees have experienced a cyber attack in the last year. So it's a significant problem. We are also seeing an increase in cybersecurity problems related to COVID-19 because as more and more enterprises roll out and deploy remote access, some of these remote access solutions are proving to be vulnerable. Many remote access solutions rely on virtual private networks. Those networks are slow, sometimes they are clumsy, and they are leading as well to the to the adoption of zero trust architectures, which allow you in some cases to get rid of virtual private networks. A big area of spend is going to be on cloud security tools. Forrester, which is pretty reliable, shows that we will be seeing over $12.5 billion of just cloud security tools by the year 2023, which is almost 3 times as much as we were spending in 2018. And overall, not just tools, but on all efforts to secure the cloud, we're likely to move to over $1.5 billion in North America by 2023, with a compounded annual growth rate in the market between 2020 and 2023 of over 25%. Endpoint security is growing quickly. And as I said, endpoint detection and response, a relatively new area just a couple of years ago, is now almost 25% of the market. Morgan Stanley research, and I think their research is probably quite good, believes that by the end by right about now, we should be spending about $128 billion just on endpoint detection. This gives you a sense of how things are really going. We are very sensitive in the United States, as I know you are in Europe, to the cost of cybersecurity breaches. At this point, we believe that, and this number is not reliable because I've worked on this problem myself, that we see something like $600 billion a year being taken out of the economy as a result of cyber breaches, which is significant, which is maybe 4% of gross domestic product. Or as much as maybe, or 0.8% of global GDP. That's a big, big number. That's one of the reasons why we think this is really a big problem. As you look at the market, consider it broken into several different categories: enterprise security, network security, endpoint security, which is growing quickly, application security, cloud security, which is also growing quickly, as well as managed security services. Let me close with this, because you may have questions, and I've already, I think, gone through my time budget. If you take a look at global cybersecurity spending, it's likely to be about $250 billion by 2023. Now, having said that, the United States will probably be the largest market, followed by Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, which are roughly the same. We believe that Europe and the US market are growing at essentially the same rate. The APAC, the Asia-Pacific market, is growing at a somewhat faster rate as cybersecurity solutions are being adopted in Asia. Middle East and Africa is also growing quickly, but it's much smaller. Latin America growing more quickly as well than Europe and North America, but again, somewhat smaller. Lastly, there are some very specialized markets that are beginning to emerge. Smart grid cybersecurity. It's relatively small, but by next year it could be worth almost $8 billion in the United States. It's relatively small, but its compounded annual growth rate could be as high as 13%. And we're looking at other highly specialized kinds of cybersecurity related to critical infrastructure. For those of you that are doing business with the U.S. public sector, U.S. public sector cybersecurity continues to be robust. The Department of Defense is the largest spender at about $5.5 billion, plus money that relates to classified programs that we cannot discuss today. You should look very carefully at the Department of Homeland Security. It is getting more money, reportedly, in the budget for upcoming years, and the Biden administration is likely to give more money to the Department of Homeland Security for cybersecurity. In my opinion, it is possible that the Department of Homeland Security will start to move from its current signature-based defenses, using a system called Einstein, to endpoint detection and response deployed throughout the U.S. government. We are already seeing parts of the Department of Defense, including the Defense Information Systems Agency, move in the direction of zero trust architecture, and I believe we will see more action of that type. Lastly, private equity is moving private equity firms continue to invest very strongly in cybersecurity businesses. They are paying a lot of money for them. In some cases, what I would say, they are paying money that in multiples of revenue, not multiples of profit. And those acquisitions include both U.S. firms as well as European firms, and in some cases, Israeli firms. I would note that Israel is also a fierce competitor in this market. When I went last to the RSA conference in San Francisco, I would say that almost 10% of the companies there were Israeli. I would also note that German companies also had a strong representation. So in closing, I have tried to describe the overall political context that is shaping cybersecurity in the United States, something of the technological challenges and changes that are occurring, and something of the size of the market and the market dynamic. I hope this was of use to you. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. It was a pleasure and an honor for me to do so. And with that, we're concluded. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Samuel, for this thought-provoking presentation full of valuable data. It's really impressive, and thank you so much for emphasizing the importance and the value of the cybersecurity. Really impressive numbers. I learned a lot. I don't see any questions in the Q&A sections. Important message to all the participants today, please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section, which is located in the upper right corner of your screen. It seems like for now people are trying to digest the amount of this valuable data you provided Samuel today. So guys, I mean, feel free to approach Samuel afterwards during the networking session if you would like to ask the question. For now, thank you so much, Samuel, one more time. We'll see if there are questions to you afterwards, after the panel discussion. At this point, I would like to invite here on the big stage our second speaker for today, who is Eric Toler, Executive Director of Georgia Cyber Center, and he will make us more familiar with the Georgia Cyber Center ecosystem. Hello, Eric. Please join me here on the big stage. Hello, Eric. Thank you. Nice to see you.
You too, Marzena.
Just 1 second before you start, I just saw there's one question from Tom Spazov. It's probably a question to Samuel. The question is, what is the biggest challenge in cybersecurity? You're on mute, Samuel.
All right. Sorry, I didn't hit it quickly in time. Thank you. Question. I would say there are a couple of big challenges. One, we need to be able to detect cybersecurity problems that will occur in complex networks. We don't have the luxury of building a firewall or perimeter around our networks today that we used to have. Secondly, I think we're going to see more advanced persistent threats that do not have known signatures, and the ability to detect the effects of these. There was an American television program called House MD, where the Dr. House used something called differential diagnosis. He didn't know what the disease was, but he studied the symptoms and he deduced the presence of the disease and its characteristics. We will need to be using more and more artificial intelligence, in my opinion, to detect and understand and block anomalous behavior. Lastly, we can expect threats to our cybersecurity to continue to rise. Information is more valuable today than it has ever been. Cyberspace as a place to exercise nation-state power is more important than it has ever been, and therefore the value of malicious operations in cyberspace will continue to grow. I hope that was a good answer to your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Samuel. There is a second question. Please don't disappear yet. It's a question from Elton Rieger. The question is, what about autonomous vehicles cybersecurity? What are the main challenges and dangers?
Well, I think autonomous vehicles will be a great thing, particularly for those who have ever seen me drive. But what I would say is this. Autonomous vehicles are going to rely on a highly interconnected and interactive network. We will need 5G networks because they're faster, they have less latency, they have more bandwidth. We will need this to be able to communicate information to the autonomous vehicle so that the vehicle's onboard systems will have better information. And that means that autonomous systems may be subject to what we call data poisoning, both giving it bad information on which to make decisions or poisoning the algorithms or training data used in the artificial intelligence applications that guide it. And secondly, they will be part of large metropolitan or even regional 5G networks. These networks need to be secured, and we are only now beginning to understand the cybersecurity challenges of networks that serve millions of users and have billions of IoT devices. I think the problems can be addressed, they can be solved, but I also think that we need to accelerate the pace of cybersecurity research and development and catch up to the pace of the research and development for information technology. There is an old story, and I'll tell it very quickly. The famous car, the Bugatti, which was actually built in France, although Ettore Bugatti was Italian. And he was asked why he didn't put better brakes on his cars. And he said, well, madam, I make my cars to go, not to stop. But we can't afford that anymore. We have to be sure that we conduct research and development for cybersecurity that keeps up with, that is synchronized entirely with the development and the deployment of new information technology networks. And the security of autonomous vehicles, I think, is one of the most important examples. Joshua, thank you. That's a very kind comment.
Yeah.
And no, I do not own a Bugatti.
Okay, well, maybe.
But I would like to.
Yeah, I would like to too. All right, I definitely connect with Joshua. It's a brilliant example, a really thought-provoking answer. Thank you, Samuel. Let me see if there are any more questions. No. All right. So at this point, I would like to invite one more time Eric Toler to tell us a bit more about the Georgia Cyber Center and its ecosystem. As I mentioned before, please feel free to use the Q&A section for your questions, guys. All right, Eric, the stage is yours. And I will be on the backstage in case you need anything.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Marzena. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on we're in the. For those in Deutschland, Guten Tag. very honored to be with y'all today to talk about the Georgia Cyber Center. I'm especially excited to talk to our colleagues in Germany. I actually lived in Germany from 1996 to 2002, and all three of my daughters were born there. So I certainly have a special place in my heart for Deutschland there. So because of time, I'm going to run through this pretty quick, and I am going to go through a presentation. So let me share my screen real quick. Okay, can everybody see that and hear me?
Yes,
Marzena?
everything is fine, Eric. You can continue.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'm going to go through this very quickly. I was told I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to set my timer now. And so hopefully this will whet your appetite, and we can talk more about some of the things we're doing during the virtual networking session. So I'll go to the next slide here. Yeah, so as Ellen mentioned earlier, the Georgia Cyber Center is an unprecedented investment. $106 million in cash of taxpayer money. 2 buildings, 320,000 square feet combined. But I really want to talk about the why, not to go into the detailed history, but why do we have this here in Augusta? The first thing was to answer a need for the state. As was alluded to earlier, the threat is out there, and we've got to do something to mitigate that. And so this was part of Georgia's answer for that. The other reason was to partner with the Department of Defense, and specifically the U.S. Army here at Fort Gordon. So the Army's kind of gone all in here at Fort Gordon with now a 3-star operational command and Army Cyber Command. And they had already established their Cyber Center of Excellence, which does our institutional training, doctrine development, and capabilities development. So largest employer in the region is Fort Gordon, over 30,000 employees there, mostly in uniform. And so we want to take advantage of that partnership. And so what was the big idea? And it was really to bring everybody together from academia, from the private sector, and from government. So this gives you just a small snapshot of who we have here on campus. From Department of Defense, you see Defense Digital Service there in the center, to the state of Georgia, Bureau of Investigation Cybercrime Center, which services the entire state of Georgia, to the National Guard, which is both DOD and works for the state. You see an example of some of our industry partners here, from big companies like BAE and Northrop Grumman to smaller companies like Network Designs, Incorporated, and Ops Consulting. In total, we have 13 industry partners. We also have 2 nonprofits. The Clubhouse, which you see in the bottom right, is essentially an incubator for startup companies. And then the one in the middle to the left, the CSRA Alliance, is really the one that promotes Fort Gordon and acts as the conduit between the Army and the community here in Augusta. And then, of course, from the academic side, we have both a technical college, 2-year college, teaching IT, cybersecurity, networking, and then the Augusta University School of Computer and Cyber Sciences. So again, very unique to have both a technical college and a university in the same location. Very unique to have an active law enforcement entity doing investigations and digital forensics on a college campus, because we are part of Augusta University. It just gives you a quick snapshot of what we have here on campus all the time. And so what was our vision? I was either blessed or cursed to work in the Pentagon from 2006 to 2009, where essentially the Department of Defense defined what cyberspace was and what cyberspace operations was. And since then, we've established a command, U.S. Cyber Command. The Army's created a career field, but I would argue that we haven't fundamentally changed the way we recruit, train, or retain talent, the way we do capabilities development, although we've made some improvements, or the way we operate as a nation or as a coalition in protecting our critical infrastructure. There's capabilities and authorities, legalities, laws that in some cases prohibit us from working together in some cases. So it was mentioned earlier about policy. We need to continue to work on that. So our vision is to really lead a revolution in cybersecurity by bringing everybody together all the time and working out some of these problems, not just a two-day conference that we meet once a year and talk about great ideas, but actually do things here together. And so how do you do that? So our mission, we're here to talk about ecosystem, and for us, it's very appropriate, although I think ecosystem is becoming an overused term in some cases, but for us, it's absolutely appropriate because we are creating interdependencies amongst our partners here on the campus. It's really, how do you leverage the combined talent of these three big entities? And for us, we're doing 5 specific things. One is delivering affordable and relevant. Again, it's got to matter, and people have to be able to afford it. Both training and education, where education framework for us starts with the technical college and the university. Developing degree programs, again, that give you both the knowledge, skills, and abilities, but also the experience to enter the workforce once you graduate. Me and my staff can do the training piece to fill some of those gaps, both industry certification training as well as developing training, and then taking training that's being done both in the government or the private sector and combining that with these degree programs as we move forward. Again, I can talk 30 minutes about this, but happy to talk more about it during the virtual sessions. Number 2 is to develop the workforce. This was Army Cyber Command's biggest concern when they moved to Augusta, is having the workforce available to do the work. And so strategically, we're looking at K through 12 programs, spending a lot of effort there, working with veterans programs to ensure that we can, for those that are trained in IT or Intel or security, can transition effectively. For those that are transitioning careers, or for those that are already in the industry and want to move up the ladder. Those are the programs we're focused on there. For innovation, it's really about solving not only complex cybersecurity, but also other technology challenges. And we have the entities on campus to do that. From, I'd mentioned Defense Digital Service, if you look at them as doing tactical innovation, solving current problems with current technology and industry leading technology and standards and practices, to university research and government research that's looking 3, 5, 10 years out. And then another entity we have here that does what they call rapid capability development and innovation, which is really taking that 6-year government process and trying to do it in about 6 months. And so combine all that together, make it informative, almost like a DevOps type environment here, where we have establishing a framework where you can bring your technical problems and then use the talent and form teams, not only here on campus, but across the globe to help solve those problems. And whoever the sponsor is gets to define the rules within the framework. Of course, providing unbiased advice. Again, not my opinion, but our partners' opinions on policy and how we help inform for us our state leadership. Facilitating information sharing. I mentioned we have all the entities on campus to do that. This is our own Security Operations Center for the university and the Health Sciences Network, but we've also got DOD, Department of Energy will move in next month as well, law enforcement, private industry, et cetera. And then service provision, the idea is really about driving down the costs for those that currently can't afford to secure themselves. So for many companies that are providing security, how do you increase the customer base and help drive down the cost so they can afford it? Of course, we like to have fun here. That's these are government buildings, but if you ever come to visit, I think you will feel that these are not government buildings. So it is about creating this collaborative and free thinking environment. And then finally, our purpose is just to win as a nation, to win as a coalition for those that have the same, interests that we do in the world, and how to counter the two entities that were mentioned earlier with Russia and China. So I will stop there and stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric, for giving us this overview of Georgia Cyber Center. Let me have a look on the Q&A section. Guys, do you have any questions to Eric, or would you like to keep your questions for afterwards for the panel discussion or networking lounge? All right. Anyway, I can see one question from Federico. It's a question to Samuel again. Samuel seems to a lot of attention today. Samuel, could you please join us again for one more second?
I have.
The question. Maybe if Eric would like to elaborate on this question as well. It is, how about improper file sharing? What is the impact of that on the global cybersecurity?
I need to understand a little bit more about the question. Are we talking about improper file sharing done maliciously, like WikiLeaks, or are we talking about improper file sharing because a person shares carelessly with somebody who shouldn't have access to the file? If you could clarify the question a little bit, I would be grateful.
Federico? Anyway, let's give Federico some time to elaborate on his question, and we'll get back to it maybe at the beginning of the panel discussion.
All right. Well, somebody,
because it's
Joshua has provided some sort of an answer.
That's true, but Federico is not responding now, so let's wait for him to. Oh, 1 second. It's coming. The second one, he said.
Well,
the second one.
That's right. Well, I think this is a problem in that organizations don't manage their data as well as they should. A zero trust architecture would, in essence, say that I'm going to point you to that data. I'm going to point you to that application and to that data. But your access to that data will be mediated by a rule in the zero trust architecture. So I think zero trust architecture is a way of dealing with improper file sharing. Now, having said all of that, it is also important, in my view, to continue to do good training in organizations. File sharing is sometimes done inadvertently because people get phished. And it is unfortunate, and true, that phishing training reveals that most organizations still have users who are vulnerable to being phished. And in many organizations I know, training programs are undertaken where phishing emails are sent by the organization as a test to people, and some number of people, 5–10%, click on that link. Now, a friend of mine says that the reason for this is that we are, as human beings, we like to, when we see something, when we see a door, we want to open it. When we see a link, we want to click on it. When we see something we don't know, we want to know it. That's how we are wired. And this is one reason why we need to continue to improve the level of training. But I think from an architecture perspective, the use of zero trust architecture could improve. So if I decide to share a file with you, I can make the decision to do so, but your access to that file is mediated by a rule that is used to improve zero trust architecture.
All right, Federico, I'm sure that it answers your question. Thank you very much, Samuel. Eric, would you like to add something? I can see that there is one question to you, Eric, as well. The question is yeah.
Add really briefly to that. Improper file sharing is one of many challenges that we have in cybersecurity. But one thing that you may or may not be aware of from Europe is our government's rolling out what's called a cybersecurity maturation model certification for any private industry that's doing business with the Department of Defense. No longer will we like take the word of a company to ensure they're meeting the cybersecurity standards for their company. They'll actually get inspected and audited and have to show that they're actually doing that. So that's something that is in the works if you weren't aware of that.
Right, thank you very much, Eric, for adding your perspective. I will just ask one question from the audience, and then we're gonna move to the other speaker. It's a question from Tom Spazov to you, Eric. Is cyber range mandatory to increase the effectiveness of a CERT?
To increase the effectiveness of what? I'm sorry. I'm trying to look at that.
CERT. You can see the question in the Q&A section if you wish. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
I got you. Yeah, okay. I'm assuming that's a certification. So good question. I mean, it's not mandatory. It does increase the effectiveness. I mean, and you can call it a range, you can call it hands-on experience. You do need either a lab or a range. I think when you look at the different industry certifications that are out there, anything that's giving you additional knowledge, skills, and abilities, it's more than just memorizing things and taking a multiple choice test. You really do need the hands-on, and that's something that we preach here. It's been a challenge during the pandemic, but the cyber range does enable us to do that. So we can replicate virtual machines here and allow those that we are instructing to have access to those machines. And we can instruct on them, but they also have time to go on and have the experience themselves and practice. And so I think whether you call it a range or whether you call it a lab is kind of a moot point, but I certainly agree that having that hands-on experience, if you can't get on the actual equipment, to have it virtualized is a critical component to gaining those knowledge, skills, and abilities. The certification just kind of certifies that you know those things. So hopefully that's the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samuel. I can see that we're getting more questions. Unfortunately, we need to move forward. But guys, don't worry. We'll make sure to address your questions during the panel discussion, as yeah, it's going to be a great discussion, I believe, judging from what's happening right now. Thank you very much, Eric and Samuel. And at this point, I would like to invite one of the German cybersecurity company and our great speaker, Dominik Lenarczyk, who is a director consulting from UBIRCH, which is a cybersecurity company with offices in Berlin, Cologne, and Munich. And they're actually in the process of expanding to the US. I'm sure that Dominik can tell you more about it. Hello, Dominik. It's great that you are here with us today. The stage is yours. You have your 10 minutes and see you soon.
Yeah, I'll try to stick to my 10 minutes. Welcome, everybody. So as Marzena mentioned, I'm Dominik Lenarczyk, Director Consulting from UBIRCH. We still can be considered a startup, probably. Main locations are in Cologne, Berlin, and Munich, but we already have offices in Tel Aviv. We just launched offices in Dubai, and yes, we are planning to go to the United States in this year if everything works out with the pandemic. But yeah, let me guide you through a small presentation to tell you what we are doing. And so I guess you can see my screen. If not, please shout. Many of the stuff we do actually fits perfectly to many topics Samuel already mentioned. He mentioned zero trust, he mentioned complex networks, data poisoning. So these are exactly the points we are covering. So yeah, let me tell you how we can help you to minimize, how we call it, the time to trust, to scale up data-driven business models. And this is true for IoT and also beyond. So, you know, trust has always been the basis of every kind of business relationship, right? It's something which you create through looking into people's eyes, through shaking hands, through signing contracts, through doing due diligence, through looking at data. So, of course, that's also true for data-driven businesses, right? So data-driven business models need to ensure that the data they are dependent on, they are working with, is completely trustworthy. And in the ideal case, this is true independent of the data's journey and independent of the way how the data transmission. But yeah, let me explain what I mean. So let me ask you a question. So when you take any kind of business critical decision, or you do any kind of due diligence to take a decision, what do? Do you only trust the messenger, or do you check the message itself? So typically you would check three things, right? You would trust them. You would see if you can trust the messenger, if data was transmitted in a confidentially way. You would check the authenticity of data, of the databases you received, by checking signatures. And you would also, of course, also check the integrity of data before you said, okay, that's a data set I can work with. Now I got all the documents to take my decisions. So I got a question. When looking at data-driven business models, right, why is it that we mostly focus on the confidentiality of data, while this does not protect everything we need? And as Samuel already said, in a fully connected and data-driven world, we are talking about multi-stakeholder business cases. We are talking about multi-hop data sharing. So it does not work anymore to only protect the data transportation between A and B and between B and C. Data might travel from A to B, from B to C, from C to D, and so on. And if we only apply security measures or security methods we currently use, that's definitely not sufficient, because most of those security methods we currently use, they all focus, as Samuel said, on the network itself. They focus on securing the confidentiality. They focus on securing the data transmission and on securing end-to-end between A and B. And all of these, many of these methods, as Samuel also said, they were not built to scale, right? And they are absolutely not built to scale into any kind of IoT applications or IoT devices when we're talking about billions of sensors around the world all sending data. And the big question, if you are data receiver D, why should you trust the infrastructure that was built up between A and B, right? But how can you trust it? So typically data, you know, A produces some data, it gets encrypted, then it gets transferred, then B takes the data, decrypts it again, and then stores the data. And then the same happens again. B takes the data and sends it, receives it, and gets encrypted again. And every time when it gets decrypted, there are vulnerabilities. And there is the lack of the proof of authenticity. There's the lack of proof of integrity. And there's also the lack of proof of origin, because we all focus on the data transmission so far. So, but the value of data, it lays in its authenticity, and it lays in the integrity, because that's what we are taking the decisions on. It's not the fact that it got transmitted in a confidential way. Of course, confidentiality is very important in many times, and it's not that is a competence here, but the value of data is within the authenticity and within the integrity. And as Samuel said, there's a new attack pattern on the horizon, which is basically data poisoning, right? It's exactly getting to those points where data is stored into the databases, and even minor adjustment to the data can cause a lot of harm. So my most favorite example is the one, probably you all know this, the fact that you nowadays pretty easily can fool an AI by just changing one tiny pixel on a picture. So there's this example, I don't know if you can see it. So there is a horse on this picture, but there was one pixel changed, and the AI will tell you that it's a frog. Now imagine you're taking any kind of business critical decision and rolling out a payment after your AI said this is a horse, and there was just one tiny change in the data set you probably don't even notice, and yeah, basically your business model is screwed. So we need ways to secure the authenticities. We need ways to secure the integrity of data itself, which is independent of the data transmission. And yes, also looking into COVID, because this is, of course, something we'll discuss in the panels. We all know the stories, right? So there were people who were manipulating science documents. There are first people running around with fake COVID test results. There are first hacking attacks on the supply chain of the COVID transportation, and so on. So there are many, many topics where we need to protect the data more than we are doing it nowadays. So what we're talking about is a little bit a paradigm shift. It's away from securing only the tunnels, which, as we learned already, they are expensive, they are slow, they are hard to maintain, and they definitely don't scale. Going to, let's focus more on securing the data itself, which can, of course, still travel through a tunnel if this is necessary. So let me give you a glimpse on how we do it at UBIRCH. So what our goal is, to make data verifiable against its source. And that's how we reduce the time to trust. Because our idea, and that's what we are working on, is that everyone who received data in a business case, in a sharing scenario, it doesn't matter, everyone who received data independently of the channel he received the data. So it can be an email, can be FTP, can be an API, can be an Excel sheet. It just doesn't matter. As long as the person or the data receiver received the data, using UBIRCH technology, and we built up on a blockchain technology, can easily verify the authenticity and the integrity and also the sequence of data. And yeah, that's the beauty. That's a system we've building up, which works beyond any system boundaries, which works beyond any platform, beyond any network boundaries. And it's just the fact, if you have the data, you can verify the data, and UBIRCH will prove to you that this data is really coming from this source, what not changed, what not tampered with, nothing got injected, nothing got deleted, and stuff like that. So how exactly are we doing this? What we are doing is we are building a verifiable chain of trust from the source. So our solution mainly exists out of two components. So we have the so-called UBIRCH Nano client. This is a tiny piece of software, an SDK, which is optimized to be run on even low-powered or battery-powered tiny IoT devices, and our cloud trust backend. So, but of course, what runs on tiny IoT devices can also run on edge devices, on servers, on PCs, and so on. So let's say this is actually a vaccination truck, right? So it has a thermal monitoring in it. And whenever a data set is recorded by the IoT device measuring the temperature, we will create a so-called seal, or you could consider it a certificate of the data, or a micro certificate of the data. So what we are doing here, just short, we can answer this afterwards in the panel or at my table. We are taking the data, we are hashing it, we are signing it, and we are interlinking it with the previous signature of the previous data package. So that way we have a certificate which represents the data but does not contain the data. And only the certificates gets transferred into our backend, where we aggregate it in our own Merkle tree structure, and in a fixed time interval we anchor our root hash into a public blockchain. And I say any kind of public blockchain because we are completely blockchain agnostic. We are using a blockchain as a tool to become transparent and trustworthy and verifiable ourselves. So as you can see in this little picture here, the data stream itself is grayed out because in a positive way, we don't care how data actually travels. We don't care how many hops data takes. But the beauty is every receiver, so it can be the manufacturer of the vaccine, can verify the measurement of the temperature sensor. The authority can verify the measurement of the temperature sensor. And even the customer at the end has a possibility, if he has the data, to simply recreate the hash and just fire a simple verification request within our API. And you need something in between to be faster, to be scalable, and of course also to have a cost control. And with our API in between, we basically capsulate all those cryptography stuff, this blockchain stuff, into a very simple API, as you can see, because at the end we have a client running on the device or on the data source. And we have an endpoint to anchor your certificates, and we have an endpoint to verify the data. Just one bigger use case which we see out there. So I was talking about multi-stakeholder business cases. So X as a service or pay-per-use models is something which we definitely see more and more out there. And I'm totally convinced that one day you won't be buying your coffee machine anymore, but you will just get your coffee machine and you will get a monthly bill based upon your coffee consumption. And that's also a typical, it's a data-driven business models where more and more stakeholders are involved, right? So you have the manufacturer of the coffee machine, you have the coffee, the owner of the coffee machine, and there might be even like a financial institution involved offering this whole stuff in an as a service model. So there are many parties, many stakeholders involved, which all rely on the fact that they receive trustworthy data from a tiny device. And using our solution, using blockchain technology, we give all those participants a very easy way to verify the data they are working with. Yeah, just a short glimpse. In the panel discussion, we'll be focusing on the pandemic and COVID a little bit more. And of course, that's also, as mentioned, something where trustworthy data is essential. So those are just two use cases which are in production right now and which are powered by UBIRCH. So there are COVID PCR tests which you can get at some laboratories. Actually, at the biggest airports in Munich, if you get tested, you have the chance to get a digital certificate with UBIRCH on your PCR test results. And this is, of course, as we've already seen, there are fake test results out there. There's even a black market for test results out there, people in the US trying to travel with fake COVID test results. And we have a simple way, which is in production right now actually it's the biggest COVID testing lab in Europe. And they are using the UBIRCH technology to certify and to make their test results verifiable for every third party. And just last week, we also started our vaccination proof certificate together with one of the districts here in Bavaria, and this is something we are currently also rolling out. And yeah, of course, there are many more use cases. So it's not only about IoT, we are also into critical infrastructure. And as Samuel also mentioned, we are into smart grids. We have customers in energy, we have customers in insurance, health tech, and many more. And yeah, we are planning to go into the US in 2021. We just recently successfully finished our German accelerator program, Silicon Valley, but since that was a remote program, of course, there's still room for improvement when it comes to networking and lead generation. And of course, in the first step, we were definitely looking to roll out our COVID solution, whether it's the cold chain thing, whether it's verifiable PCR results, or even the vaccination proof into the US markets. And I think I don't need to cover any reasons why the US market is so interesting for us, because Samuel basically said all of this. It's a very interesting market. It's really cybersecurity focused, and we see huge opportunities for us there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dominik. Really good timing and really great examples, case studies. We have a time to address only one question, unfortunately. It's a question from Mike Richardson. And the question is, so we can use this to prevent fraud? Can we bind the functionality to more than data, like food?
Like food, yeah, basically, of course, if you give your food an identity in some kind of way, right? Let's be it in QR code or any laser engraved number or whatever, this technology can, of course, be also used to make this food and the whole food chain verifiable. At the end, what we need is any kind of an identity and a way to anchor this identity as close to the point where data is created. So this would be at the plant of the banana, for example.
Thank you for the example, Dominik. Anyway, at this point, we need to move to the last presentation of today. Thank you so much, Dominik. Again, I will see you at the panel discussion in 10 minutes with all the other speakers. And I would like to invite to the big stage our last Oliver Dehning, who is a former co-founder of Hornetsecurity. And he will share with us his experiences related to the expansion on the American market as a German cybersecurity company and so forth. Hello, Oliver. It's a pleasure to have you here today. The stage is yours, and nice.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'd rather be in Berlin, I guess, but since that doesn't seem to be possible for a while, I'll do my best to do it from here. And I think I can really say this kind of event your holding is actually great, and I guess it's the best we can get right now. So, let's start with who I am. As you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of Hornetsecurity. Hornetsecurity is cloud-based security service company. I will tell a little bit more about Hornetsecurity in a minute, but I'm a co-founder and I have actually left the company about a year ago, last year. And so whatever I say today, I do not represent Hornetsecurity, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself, just as a disclaimer. Okay, we started the process going to the US in 2016. And at that time, we were, well, a German company. End of 2016, we had about 65 employees. We were represented with offices mostly in Germany. We had another office in Spain, in Barcelona. And we also had lots of partners in several European countries, in the US, actually, in the UK, in Australia. So we were, in a way, an international company, but we weren't really there. We just did that remotely. And so the question is, okay, we're growing fast. Should we go to the United States? And one aspect, and that has already been mentioned, is one reason we went there is this is by far the largest IT market globally. So when the question came up, why do you go to the US? The answer is, okay, can we really afford not to be in the US? As you can see right now, it's estimated that the USA has about 33% of the global IT market. Then there are some other aspects. Everybody who is in Germany knows that the German IT market is kind of dominated by US-based IT companies. So we thought maybe we can return the favor and go to their home market and do some business there and compete with American companies in the United States. Another aspect is what we experience also is that German technology is highly respected in the United States. I remember being at a trade show with another company, actually, where we showed some high-tech piece, some product, and I overheard some visitors talking about our product. And one of the guys said, "Look, this is a great product, isn't it?" And the other guy said, "Yeah, it's great, but does it work?" And the answer was, "Of course it works. Look, it's German." One thing that's important also, especially for our business, is that price levels between Germany and the United States are kind of comparable. They're not that different. Cloud services are essentially, it's a kind of outsourcing, right? You don't do it yourself, you give it to a cloud service company and they do whatever you want to do for you. And that means that it's better to do that if labor cost is quite high. If labor cost is low, then you would hire somebody to do it for you. But if labor cost is quite high, then outsourcing from a financial standpoint makes a lot of sense. And therefore, we are more successful in highly developed markets with high labor cost and less successful on less developed markets, for example, in emerging markets. One thing, and that's a very strategic reason we went to the United States, is I said we had a partner who was selling its services in the United States, or our services in the United States, and they were quite successful. They started 2015, and the growth rate was quite impressive. And one question we asked ourselves is, can we really afford to have a partner represent our brand in the US? And even worse, the partner did not use our brand, they used their own brand. So can we really afford to give that market to one of our partners and then not even have our own brand, meaning the partner can easily exchange us at some point and go to another provider, and then we lose that market. What's more is we wanted to acquire that partner, and they didn't really want that. And so going to the United States ourselves was a kind of way to go around them and put pressure on that partner, and actually it worked. That partner was acquired end of 2019. Well, I've already said the US market is quite big. It's about 10 times as big as the German market, and with that, with the size comes some differences. The companies you're competing with in the United States are usually much bigger than what you will see in Germany. I had an eye-opening experience when I was at an event in Sweden, where they were talking about internationalization, to internationalize Swedish companies. And I was astonished to see that when they talked about internationalization and going to a bigger market, they actually talked about Germany. So for me, Germany was just a normal market. For them, it was a big market, and they were asking lots of questions. How can you compete in Germany in this big market? Well, it's the same question for us. If you go to the United States, you're competing in a much bigger market, and that means that some rules are different. What we also found is that in some aspects, the US market is more advanced than the German market. I was expecting that the US market is much more advanced in terms of cloud computing or use of cloud computing generally, but that actually wasn't the case. But there are some other aspects around marketing and sales and how to present your company and so on. And I have written down one thing, and that is, if you're working in the channel, in Germany, you focus on your product. You show your product, and if the product is great, then the channel partners will work with you. In the United States, the product is kind of a given. They expect that the product works. Of course it works. But then what they expect is quality and performance in how you cooperate in the relationship, how easy it is to work with you. Is it difficult to get an invoice? Is it difficult to pay? And so on. And these were things that we did not see in Germany, and was quite, well, a surprise for us. And we found that we actually had to work on our business processes to improve how we did that before we were able to really work with resellers in the United States. Also, one aspect in the channel is in Germany, we still have lots of what we call Systemhaus, in the United States is mostly called a VAR, a value-added reseller. But the business model of an MSP, so a company that takes several different products and build their own package around that and sell that package to their customers, is a lot higher. It's a trend that we see in Germany as well, but in the United States, it's much more advanced. And then, of course, an important aspect for us in Germany is we are a German company, so Germans like to work with German companies because of privacy concerns. And so that's an advantage that we lose in the United States. And we thought that in the United States, since there's less concern for privacy, it wouldn't really matter that we are a German company. But that's not entirely true. You also get questions, okay, where's your data center? Is it in the United States? Ah, it's in Germany. Oh, we don't like that. So if you go over there, then you need to be an American company in the eyes of the American customers. So then the question is, okay, you go to the US, where exactly do you go? It's a huge country. And in Germany, you can visit everybody. In the US, it's virtually impossible. It's just too big. So we thought, okay, let's go to a metro area like New York area or Washington, DC. And what we realized is that doesn't really help. This is still just an area, so you're not covering all of the United States. And B, these metro areas, they're kind of stuck in traffic. You don't get anywhere because there's just so much traffic. And so you end up being in your office and calling people, and that's quite usual. It's much more usual than over here, but well, during Corona, I guess we learn. So remote selling is the normal way to go. And once we found out, okay, we don't actually have to go there, we said, okay, then it's not important where in the United States we are. It's just important that we are somewhere in the United States, and we ended up in Pittsburgh. Why Pittsburgh? Well, it's an emerging tech hub. It is within the Eastern time zone, so we wanted to be within the 6-hour difference from Germany. Salaries and costs are kind of within the US average. It's a little less than US average, actually. If you go to New York, for example, or Washington, expect to pay higher salaries and expect to pay a lot more for office. There's a reasonably large airport. And one thing that was important for us is that we received a lot of support from local initiatives. They kind of really rolled out the red carpet for us. And well, I know that some gentlemen from Georgia are at this meeting, at this event. So I guess it's very similar over there. But if you go to New York, for example, I guess nobody cares, right? You can open your business there, but nobody really cares. And an afterthought, maybe Pittsburgh doesn't see earthquakes, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. Well, floods occasionally, but not that. Another surprise, administrative tasks. Setting up a company in the United States is quite simple. You go to a lawyer and kind of 5 minutes later you have a company. That's easy. What we found out is that the difficulties begin when you open a US bank account. Well, still you can open the US bank account, but then you want to sign for that bank account, meaning, of course, you want to tell the bank, okay, send money here, receive money there, and so on. And the bank has a rule, and that's a legal rule. We have that in Europe as well, but the environment is a little bit different. And that legal rule is know your customer. So the bank will ask, okay, actually, Mr. Dehning, you seem to be a nice guy, but who are you exactly? And you take out your German passport, and the bank will say, German passport is nice, but we need a US document. So what we found out, what's really crucial is you need a visa. Otherwise, you don't have a US document that proves your identity to American businesses, and especially a bank. Another observation, another event when that happened was I wanted to send 2 parcels from San Francisco to Pittsburgh, and that wasn't possible without a visa because they simply said for security reasons we cannot accept parcels that are being sent by foreigners. Okay. And since we started our business in the US exactly with the start of the Trump administration, it seemed to be difficult to get a visa. So the first try we had, an L1A visa, which seemed kind of logical, was denied. So we went another route and tried to get an E2 treaty visa that was later granted, but it took us about a year to get that visa. Once you have that visa, the rest is quite simple. Another thing that was a little difficult is everything around having employees, healthcare insurance, retirement plans, US labor laws. To get rid of that issue, we ended up working with a so-called professional employer organization. I've mentioned their name, TriNet, but I know there are others. They basically hire your employees. You technically hire them, but from a legal perspective, they are at the end being hired and paid and everything by TriNet. And so they work for you, you direct them. It's just like having your employees, but everything on the legal side, on the financial side is taken care of by that professional employer organization. And it costs a little bit of money, but we found it's a good thing because healthcare insurance alone is a headache from a German perspective. Another thing that is difficult is sales tax. that's really difficult. One question is, if you, for example, for software as a service, that's what we did, or what we do, what Hornetsecurity does is, the question is there sales tax on software as a service? Well, that's different from state to state. Then the question is like, how much sales tax is there? And that's different from state to state. And the next question is it also different from county to county, which sometimes is the case. So you have all kinds of different sales taxes. So you need to know where your customer is. That's very different from what we have in Germany. Then again, taxation, that's your yearly statement, whether you pay taxes on your earnings. As a company, the question is, do you have nexus in a state? And just to give you an example, if you're going somewhere, say to California, to a trade show with your company, then that means you have nexus in California, meaning you have to declare taxes in California. So after a while, you probably have to declare taxes separately in lots and lots of different US states. And that was surprising. We didn't know that. Well, compared to administrative tasks, market entry, business development was quite easy. I would say we just used the standard path. We used personal regional networks, classical media campaigns, online and print. We went to conferences and shows. We started some email campaigns. It's easier to do that in the United States than in Germany. Cold calling is not unusual, and something we do a lot in Germany and in other countries as well. We started to build a channel.
Oliver, I do apologize for interrupting, but you have only 1 minute left for your presentation.
I know, I'm more or less
okay,
through.
Perfect.
Hornetsecurity today is a leading German cloud security provider. The company has more than 45K customers in more than 30 countries, more than 200 employees. Actually, now it's more like 350 because they recently acquired the backup specialist, Altaro. And something I'd like to say is we had a lot of help along the way, and I'd like to mention German Accelerator, German American Chambers of Commerce, especially Pittsburgh chapter, HP International, Pittsburgh Regional Alliance, Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, Pittsburgh Technology Council, and Pennsylvania Career Link. They helped us getting employees in Pittsburgh. And I maybe should also mention that German Accelerator and HAP are or were supported by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs. And well, thank you to all of them for the support. And thank you for attention. I will be happy to be on stage and answer your questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Oliver, for your detailed and presentation. I definitely learned a lot, and thank you for sharing your experiences from the American market. At this point, it's time to start our panel discussion. So Oliver, please stay with us. Don't go anywhere. I would like to invite all the speakers, Dominik, Eric, and Sam, to join us for a discussion. And of course, our panel discussion moderator, who is Randall Toussaint, Director, Economic Development for Partnership Gwinnett. Randall, please join us to the big stage. You didn't participate in the presentation before, but I'm really happy to have you here today. We have 40 minutes for a discussion, and then we'll move to the networking lounge. And of course, we'll address some questions from the audience. So yeah, thank you and good luck. I will be on the backstage in case of any issues.
Thank you, Marzena, and thank you to all the panelists for such wonderful presentations. I think this has been a highly anticipated event, and everyone's presentations really met the expectations, I think, of what all of us had in mind. I wanted to take a moment to thank our hosts for organizing today's event, and then also, again, thank our leadership from Marzena and from the Georgia Department of Economic Development. A lot of great questions. If folks who are watching still have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A tab that's on the far right side. We'd love to also just work some of the questions into the discussion as we go forward. But love to just throw it out there. I really loved hearing, Samuel talk a lot about the vulnerabilities that are beginning to emerge, and then some of what the future might hold in terms of security and protections. Dominik, that was fantastic, especially about reducing time to trust. And then Eric, I feel like we're old buddies. It's good to see you again, my friend. And then glad to hear about everything that's emerging over at the Georgia Cyber Center. And then Oliver, your journey into the States and your experiences on really both sides of the Atlantic, that was instrumental. I'd love to just dive into some topics that kind of threaded through each of your presentations. A lot of you had mentioned just different things that had been impacted through COVID-19 and just the emergence of this pandemic. Samuel, I was supposed to go to RSA last year, and we actually had that put on hold for part of our team. I would love to just check in with you all. This global pandemic, it's caused companies and organizations and really society as we know it to embrace a lot of new practices, from working from home to just changing how we order goods and services. How have these changes really impacted the cybersecurity industry, and what direction do you see things going into now?
I think that question is aimed at me, but I'm not sure. And if it's aimed at others, please forgive me. So the pandemic has certainly caused an industry that has tried to improve the cybersecurity of virtual working to focus on the cybersecurity of its own virtual working. I was looking today at a security operations center, and that center is empty. But the center is in use. It's just not populated. Everybody is working from home. Even arrangements to look at privileged data have had to be rearranged. One of the things that this is doing, I think, is forcing us to ask if we're doing an adequate job in the overall architecture of our cybersecurity systems. Do we need central monitoring? Can we use more rules-based, cloud-based, AI-based rules to mediate and govern access within the systems? So I think this is going to be a forcing function to improve cybersecurity. And look, to a certain extent, it's overdue. Having human beings watch boards, in a network that's going to have millions of users and billions of IoT devices, where new devices are coming on and old devices are leaving every second, where autonomous applications are making decisions, expecting that human beings themselves are going to look at screens and somehow spot anomalies is probably unrealistic. So I'm hoping that this proves as a forcing function to use more advanced technology, machine learning, to understand and habituate our systems to patterns, and our artificial intelligence to find problems, to allocate defenses dynamically, to adjust dynamically. Hey, more devices have come online. Somebody bought a new car that has IoT. Somebody has put in a new thermostat. Somebody has a new autonomous device. Networks are going to change very, very quickly. So I'm hoping that this is a forcing function to improve the automation, the intelligent automation of our system.
Maybe I can step in and share my view. What we have seen in IT in the past roughly 10 years is a paradigm shift. So in the past, up to the 2000s, it was quite usual and normal to have everything on premise, right? You went to the office, the computer was kind of there, even if it was in the data center, it was in a closed environment, and protection was at the perimeter. So essentially, you build a fence around your IT. Everything outside the fence is potentially dangerous. Everything inside the fence is safe. Well, with cloud computing and mobile computing, that's of course no longer true, right? Because you have lots and lots of resources outside that fence, and you have your users outside that fence. So that is something that started 10 years ago and is a process. But many companies, especially smaller companies, didn't realize that this was happening. So they still built their fences, not realizing that there is at least a goal, if not a huge gap in that fence. And with Corona and everybody staying at home and suddenly needing to work from there, everybody realized, oh dear, now how do we protect our data? Because everybody is now somewhere else. And so I think, and that's what we see is for the IT security industry, the coronavirus is an accelerator.
Absolutely. Dominik and Eric, any comments on that topic as well?
Looking at it from a German perspective, I can just say, it really drove digitalization, especially in Germany. So as you know, in Germany, we're not the fastest one when it comes to digital adoption and digitalization. And so the pandemic forced everyone to do this, right? Of course, there are still issues and people still struggling with even remote work, but it definitely will change how society will work and live in the future because of this year. We experience that it's working in different ways. And of course, it has its pros and cons, right? But from a technical perspective, we could have been prepared for the situation. It's just that we did not prepare.
Yeah, just to highlight, it expedited the inevitable or the necessary. We talk about things, we've kind of put things on hold, and now we actually have to execute. So when the entire workforce goes home, like you say, you open these huge gaps in our defenses. But at the same time, it's been good. People now realize some of the problems and are having to address them. But we've also adapted to the way we deliver training and the way we realize that for school-age kids that are going home, we don't have broadband in Georgia that they can access. And so they're not getting the education. And so we're working on those type of projects as well. And oh, by the way, it has to be secured. So a lot of things have been overturned, and now we're addressing those. So I try to look at the bright side of things.
No, that's a definite silver lining. It's one thing to have a lot of quicksand opportunities to watch out for, but knowing where those are now because of the accelerated pace that the pandemic's created, it's definitely helpful. Want to try to make sure we get some of our questions in. Joshua, I just saw a question come in from you. It says, for anyone who would like to chime in, do you see effective movements to centralize management of security tools? Great question. As the information technology proliferates, the tools have as well. What are your thoughts on that? I'll throw that out to the group, and anyone really can feel free to chime in.
Well, being a company that focuses on distributed ledger technology and builds up its technology on that, of course, the question goes into a different topic, but I don't think that we going to centralize even more. I think it's going to be more decentralized, right? And the beauty of this decentralized technology, talking about health data, and there was an example which I brought up, that humans become, and they can decide who gets access of the data. And I think that's a beautiful process, actually, which is coming up. We might even see a deplatformization one time, who knows, right? And I think this doesn't work with the concept of centralized security management tools, because also security has to be decentralized when we want a decentralized world where everyone is their owner of their own data set. So I see a conflict there. Of course, we need to define more and more standards, especially new standards. The topic I discussed, right? Talking about more, how do we secure data authenticity? How do we secure data integrity and stuff like that? We have standards, but they are not sufficient for a fully distributed and decentralized world, which is definitely coming.
Thank you, Dominik. Any other thoughts there?
I agree with Dominik's point of view. I think if there is more centralization, it will be a unified set of rules, maybe cloud-based, that will control access. But the idea of a bunch of human beings in a room trying to do this, I think, is increasingly obsolete. The idea that you might have a consistent set of rules that are applied either on a centralized or decentralized basis, using automation, perhaps those rules even being updated with artificial intelligence, I think that's a possibility. Some of the work my team has been doing at Mitre is something called IoT MUD, or Manufacturer's User's Description. And this is to be able to control access to and from individual IoT devices. So maybe your smart light bulb needs to be able to talk to your smart power meter, but not to your router, not to be able to talk to the software in your router. And there is even talk about not only using software-defined access for IoT MUD, but eventually bringing artificial intelligence into it so that the system learns and adjusts the application of those rules. So again, I think this is pushing us in the direction of a more decentralized approach.
Yeah, dissenting opinion, but I have to agree with both the gentlemen. When I think of centralized management, it's been our experience that that leads to proprietary systems and processes that are oftentimes too slow and too expensive for most people. And so I completely agree with what Samuel and Dominik said.
Fantastic. Oliver, any thoughts?
Maybe what I would like to say is I have never believed in centralized management. Germany is a federal state for good reason. And actually, Germany as a nation doesn't exist that long. So we were tiny little states in Germany 150 years ago. And I guess that is an influence, an important influence from a cultural perspective. So what I believe in is small groups of people or resources or whatever that can do whatever they need to do, and they cooperate. Central management slows things down, and it's at the end you cannot deal with it because you're creating a bottleneck.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think Joshua appreciates that too. He just wrote in, love it, and he thanked you, Dominik, for your fresh perspective. And thank you all for taking time to answer that one. One of the big things that was recently in the news was the Pfizer hack. Recently a large amount of data that was affiliated with the vaccine that they're developing, had leaked. We're now witnessing the rollout of these new COVID-19 vaccines, and we're seeing healthcare quickly move into more electronic medical records, and a large scale transition is happening in terms of the digitization of data as it relates to healthcare. Just curious, what's your thoughts about what we're seeing as it relates to this new shift in healthcare and how that ties into cybersecurity?
Maybe I can open up here because, sorry, Samuel, because, I just recently found a very interesting information out there. So let me quote this. A healthcare data record may be valued up to $250 per record on the black market, compared to $5 for the next highest record, which is a credit card. So this just shows what value, even for the black market, there is in the health data, and that we definitely need to do anything to protect this, right? And we are already doing our part, as I've showed you. Of course, we are not protecting it. So yeah, we are making it verifiable, right? And even looking at the fact that documents got stolen, if just simple mechanisms like signed PDFs would be used, where the press then basically verifies the authenticity, getting somehow leaked documents, someone just trusting what it's in there. Problems like that could be easily solved, right? By making data verifiable beyond any boundaries. And that's exactly the point. And what the pandemic showed us, and it's not only about the vaccination status and your PCR test, I think the fact that there will be a piece of mobile health data which you are carrying around with you, which you have to show in whatever scenario. It's not a new concept, it's just a very current concept, but that will be more and more, and that's due to globalization. And if we want to fight upcoming pandemics, we need trustworthy health data, which we somehow carry around with us, which can be verified not by looking at a piece of paper and looking at a stamp, which no one knows, but yeah, which can be proven by math, right? Where you can just check, okay, the math is right, I trust you, because we have the tools for this.
Excellent. And Samuel, I think you actually had some thoughts on that as well.
Off mute. Yes, I did. One thing we're seeing several things. First, there are attempts to steal intellectual property relating to vaccine development. Maybe that will diminish as information about these vaccines becomes more generally available. Secondly, there appear to be efforts to use disinformation to diminish people's confidence in vaccines generally. I think that's shameful and criminal. I think it should be combated and stopped. But in the meantime, we are seeing this either on the part of extremists or possibly other governments. We're also seeing that there is more and more private healthcare information that's likely to be exposed in this distributed environment. Lastly, the rise of IoT devices inside of the medical practice means that devices that didn't used to have a lot of security features, like infusion pumps that one finds in hospitals and operating rooms and patient rooms, those pumps are connected to the hospital's IT system with Wi-Fi. They're no more and no less secure than that, or they weren't. My team and others have been working on putting security features, first compensating controls into the architecture that would help in the absence of controls on the devices, and eventually putting security features on the devices. But healthcare is going to become an IoT business. Pacemakers, heart monitors, dialysis machines, infusion pumps, increasingly are going to be operating on flat networks, and hospitals want flat networks. They don't want to have to spend a lot of time reconfiguring the network every time a pump is moved from one patient's room in one wing of the hospital to a patient's room in another part of the hospital. They need it to be easy, and for good reason. I sympathize with that. So putting effective security into an environment in which networks are flat, highly dynamic, and haven't been effectively secured in the past is one of the other great healthcare cybersecurity challenges.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And Eric, I'll pick on you. I know right now you're really in a really unique community. It's really a cross section of both healthcare and cyber. And any thoughts just on kind of what y'all are working on these days, and what types of initiatives y'all are seeing come into fold over at the Cyber Center?
Yeah, well, another unique aspect of Augusta University, we are the Medical College of Georgia. So got that piece with us. And so we've seen all these things unfold. And what Dominik said was, $250 per record, but yet it's probably the most highly regulated data set that we have in the country, right? So no wonder it's so expensive, but the amount of information that you get from it is obviously very valuable. And so how do you do that? One of the issues that we have for those that are operating those IT networks are very familiar with what the regulations are. What we've seen, not necessarily here in Augusta, but across the health sector, is a lot of the doctors or those healthcare professionals are not well trained in the cybersecurity threat. So, 90% of our compromises are still through email compromises where people are clicking on links. So, we've got to do a better job of securing that. But as Samuel mentioned, we've actually got 2 infusion pumps in one of our computer labs here. And when you take it apart, you see a bolted on Wi-Fi device that is not secure, after the fact. And so obviously those pumps were developed well before Wi-Fi was even a technology. And so how do you go back and re-engineer those? How do you secure those? And one of the things that we're doing specifically to healthcare, which we think is one of our niches here, standing up a work group to get at both the problems and the potential solutions. Yeah, so I'll stop there, and I know we're running out of time.
Great answers, all of the above. It kind of dovetails into my next question. When we're dealing with these transitions that have to happen, where you're taking kind of data tools and having to automate them or add technology to them, it requires this realm of innovation that we all have to step into. And collaborating and innovating go hand in hand. I was just curious about, and I'll start with you, Oliver. In what ways are you all seeing the crossroads of collaboration and innovation happening? And Oliver, in particular, as you really launched in the U.S., what you touched on it a little bit in your presentations. Could you share a little bit more about just the role that collaborating played with helping you all scale in the U.S. market? And then we'll kind of shift around to the other speakers from there.
In terms of IT security and security services, the Center for Innovation at Hornetsecurity is mostly within Germany. So we didn't do a lot of work, and I guess we still don't do a lot of work in that aspect in the US. We could, but we didn't. But what I mentioned is collaboration with the channel, because that's crucial. Your product, the value of your product is zero if at the end it doesn't serve the customer, right? So you have to adapt your products to the customers, and the question is, okay, what actually does the customer need? And since we haven't seen him, but the channel partner has, we might ask our channel partners, okay, what actually do they need? And that's a form of collaboration that we have done a lot over the decade. We worked at Hornetsecurity, and it's maybe a lower level of innovation at the end, but it's crucial to get the value of your high end, of your highly innovative service to the end customer, so that it's of use. And that's something for a German engineer, it's sometimes a little difficult to understand, because a German engineer thinks, well, I've built this machine, it's perfect. So why do I need a marketing guy, or why do I need a sales guy, right?
And appreciate the candidness there too. I'll swing back over to you, Eric. Tell us a little bit about kind of what's happening with the crossroads as it relates to collaboration and innovation over at the Cyber Center.
Yeah, so our whole model is built on collaboration and innovation. It's really everybody working here together, but with an extended network. But if you look at the model, I think Oliver absolutely nailed it. It seems so obvious, but we don't do, what does the customer need? And so when we look at designing degree programs for a university, we've gone out and asked both industry and government, what do you need in graduates? And the one point I was going to make last time was, we stood up a cybersecurity engineering degree, which is a computer engineering degree with security built into it. Going back to the medical model of how do you build systems that are secure from the beginning and not bolt on security systems at the end? So again, that's this whole model. And, our whole model of innovation is, our DoD partner is putting out requests for proposals specifically for Army Cyber Command requirements. Well, we're going to do the same thing for the state of Georgia or Department of Energy or others, because of all these conferences and working groups I've been to, it amazes me how no one knows what the requirements are. I had a group of researchers from R1 universities across the country, and they're like, we don't know what the government needs, or like, how do you not know that? And so we're trying to be that facilitator and that bridge to those that need and those that can actually do.
Well, let's pop over to Samuel and then
Matt.
Dom.
Yeah, the center that I've been running until recently, the National Cybersecurity Federally Funded Research and Development Center, works with the United States National Institute of Standards and Technology, and it's an entirely collaborative environment. We've brought in over 100 companies, signed over 200 cooperative research and development agreements, known as CRADAs, this being Washington, and we have to use abbreviations. And we bring commercial products in. We don't endorse them, but we put them together in what we call reference architectures to secure healthcare or energy or financial systems. I provided links in chat to both our center that we run for the government, as well as Mitre, as the government's own center. It's a highly collaborative model. We bring in people from the companies, people from industry, from academia, as well as our own specialists and government specialists. So if people want to collaborate, they should look at the website links that I provided.
Fantastic. And again, those are in the also in the chat area, and thank you, Samuel, for sharing the links too. Dominik, what about you? How has collaboration really intersected with innovation with your team?
I consider us to be a startup having an innovative product, right? It's as mentioned, paradigm shift, focusing on other values, looking at the future, data-driven business models becoming the default. I also believe there won't become a data-driven business. But of course, collaboration is key for us, because at the end we're trying to build a standard which works across segments, across industries. So we have to collaborate. But of course, also from a startup perspective, it's pretty time consuming to be in all those consortia and moving slowly and having all those regular meetings to move stuff, because of course you have your shareholders looking at your numbers. So yeah, it's always an interesting discussion about this topic when you're in the startup life, because of course you need both. You need the collaboration, you need the views from the market to prepare your product for the industry, for the segment. So it's absolutely important to push the innovation into those different segments.
Hearing how each of your different sectors or focus areas kind of dive into that. So thank you. Wanted to pop over to the Q&A. We had a couple of questions. Dawn Price, hi Dawn. She just reached out and said, would the security challenges presented for healthcare lend credence to a centralized healthcare approach, or does it matter? It's another decentralized versus centralized question. Any thoughts there?
Well, it depends on the market. In the United States, it's likely to be highly decentralized. We don't have a national healthcare scheme yet. I don't know that we will have one necessarily, though we have national healthcare markets, which, by the way, are being extended according to the news today. Every state administers some aspect of healthcare, and there's a lot of private healthcare. So I think it's in the United States, it's highly decentralized, though there are a few key providers. There's been a lot of market consolidation. Companies like CVS are consolidating the delivery of pharmaceuticals with some delivery of healthcare and healthcare insurance. So this consolidation, I think, is worth studying. I noted, in contrast, Israel's approach, which is highly centralized. And Israel's benefited, I think, from an enormously successful vaccination program. First, it's a smaller country, but they have 4 nationally backed healthcare providers, a centralized vaccination register, and centralized information about the efficacy of the vaccines. So for a country like that, you can continue, I think they will continue to practice a high degree of centralization. Maybe less so in the United States, but instead of centralization, the word I would use is market consolidation.
Excellent point. Kevin Skidmore writes, any thoughts from the panelists on the rise of sophisticated and targeted phishing campaigns where the attackers have dedicated resources to develop exploit profiles specific to your company and line of business?
Maybe I should answer that. Because at Hornetsecurity, the specialty or most of the work we did is in email security. And so we see all these phishing attacks, I was actually surprised that we still see lots of these broad attacks which are not specialized. So if you think about it, bandwidth for an attacker has value, right? And if he uses too much bandwidth, then he draws attention upon himself, meaning there will be some kind of response from law enforcement, for example. And he doesn't need that. So he, from the perspective of an attacker, using as little bandwidth as possible, so being as specialized as possible, is good because the success rate is higher and he doesn't draw attention early. Only later on, of course, when he's successful, but not before he's successful. And so I'm surprised that we still see these pretty broad attacks, but what we are seeing is a lot of sophistication put into algorithms that try to specialize and to shape these attacks so that they are automatically personalized. That's something we see quite a lot. And the issue is that because of that, it's a lot more difficult to detect the attacks. And you need a lot of sophistication and a lot of intelligence on the protection side to really find suspicious content, malware, and so on.
Thank you, and thank you, Kevin and Don, for the questions. We'd love for you all to keep asking questions. I see we've got just a little time left on the clock here, so we appreciate everyone who's submitting questions to the Q&A box. One thing I really want to ask about, and I heard each of you mention a little bit of this in your presentations, was just your thoughts about future advancements and kind of what the future holds for cybersecurity. Each of you touched on some different things there, you know, all the way from you know, endpoint to zero trust, tackling vulnerabilities even in supply chain. And I loved just the comments that were mentioned too about IoT and then the need to scale more talent. I'd love it if you all could just take a second and just chat a little bit about kind of what you see as being the next wave of advancements and what the demand for those are.
Well, one thing I think is we're going to see will be a move towards zero trust architecture. And we'll use cloud-based rule control as a way of handling access to every resource, every application in a network. Second, I think we're going to see more and more use of machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand the behavior of our networks, to detect anomalous behavior, to allocate resources dynamically in a network that's dynamic, always changing, and perhaps at the nation state level to craft active defense responses to disrupt attacks. I think we're going to see all of that. And I think we're going to have to increase our research and development on cybersecurity technology to be able to keep up with the deployment of 5G. And now we're talking about 6G, using terahertz links, the ability to do holographic telepresence. The complexity of those networks will be extraordinary even by the standards of 5G networks. So absolutely, I think all of these things are going to happen. And lastly, I want to go back to a point Eric made